This video is sponsored by Sunflex UK. So, you're thinking about extending your home and you want to know how long it will take. I asked channel members how long their house extension projects took and the answers were all over the place. This is an important question, one I get asked by most clients. People have to plan their lives around this because most likely they won't be living at home during construction. I've been extending homes in the UK for almost 20 years and I'm going to try and address the question of time by looking at 3 of my own house extension projects. These projects differ in size, and as we all know, size matters. There is a small extension, where we did no other work to the existing house. A medium-sized house extension, which also included refurbishing the existing property. And a large house extension, which involved completely altering the layout of the original house. This is the physically largest extension I've built, and combined with the work to the existing property, it was almost as challenging as building a new house from scratch. These 3 projects will give you a benchmark to compare against your house extension project, so you have some idea how long it's all going to take. I think it's important to look at every project in full and give you as much information as possible. I'm going to break down each project into 5 different stages because there's more to this than just the time spent building the extension. Each project starts with the feasibility study, where I measure the existing house and draw options showing how it might be extended. The statutory approval stage, where I apply for both planning and building regulations approval. Tendering involves writing a specification and having builders bid for the job. Construction is self-explanatory. This is how long it takes the builders from start to finish. And post-construction is a stage many people overlook. It involves identifying defects, sometimes called snagging, and agreeing the final account with the builder. This stage also includes getting the completion or habitation certificate from the local authority building standards department. All this can take much longer than you might expect. It's important to understand that some of these stages can run concurrently. It's possible to lodge planning and building regulations approval applications simultaneously. There are no rules against this, but it can be risky. If the planners refuse your application, then the building regulations approval is no use and it costs far more than the planning application. Likewise, it's possible to run the tendering stage at the same time as the building regulations approval. In most of my jobs, I do tendering in 2 stages. First, immediately after the initial feasibility study, to choose a builder based on fairly broad criteria. This helps us get a general price for the job before investing too much time and money pursuing the planning and building regulations approval. The second stage of the tender will happen after we have all the building warrant drawings, and I can work with the builder from the first stage to generate a final, more accurate price. While some stages may take months from start to finish, that doesn't mean I will be working on it every day. Quite often, I will prepare and lodge a planning application in 1 day, then wait a month for the officer to get back to me. For the purposes of this video, I will assume all the stages happen in sequence, one after the other, with no delays or overlaps. Obviously, this is the ideal scenario, but it doesn't always work out like that in the real world. I will measure the timescales in months, because measuring in weeks might give the illusion of accuracy. Design and construction are inherently difficult things to predict, and this is just a guide. Your own project might turn out very different. So let's start with a small house extension. This was built in 2018 and cost £32,000 plus VAT at the time. Today it would cost £45,000 to £55,000 plus VAT. The design was a 1-storey garden room connected directly to the existing kitchen. The project involved very little work inside the existing house. It's one of the few jobs I've done where the new building is just stuck onto the existing house to keep things simple. The feasibility study took less than 2 months, and most of that time was spent with the client talking through the proposal with their family, not with me frantically producing reams of drawings. The statutory approvals included a planning application and building warrant application. The planning was straightforward, but the building warrant took more time. I had to meet the officer to go over several points before we got the approval. Tendering was swift for this job, just 2 months. We got prices quickly because there wasn't much to the job. Some foundations, 1 drain, some steel beams and a timber frame with a flat roof. The simple design also helped the construction stage. It took 3 months, but probably could have been done a bit quicker if the glazing had arrived sooner. The client wanted to use high quality aluminium glazing, and these take more time to manufacture than cheaper UPVC models. This might be a good time to mention the sponsor of today's video. Sunflex UK design and manufacture high-quality aluminium doors and windows. Their network of approved installers take care of the measurements, coordination with your builder, and installation as well as aftercare. I made a video showing how Sunflex products enhanced this design of mine. Sunflex windows and doors offer a great balance between cost and quality. Check out the video, there's a link up here and in the description. We were lucky with the post-construction stage for this project. Just 3 months to resolve all snagging issues, and we also got the completion certificate from the council in good time. Keep in mind that most commonly used construction contracts for this kind of work have what's known as a rectification or defects liability period. This is a fixed period of time where the client withholds payment of a small percentage of the contract sum, known in the trade as retention. Once the work is finished, the architect will issue what's known as practical completion. Now, for all intents and purposes, the client is living in their new home and everything should work perfectly. But this isn't always the case. Defects can emerge after practical completion, and the purpose of the retention money is so that the client can pay another builder to fix these defects if the original builder can't or won't deal with them. For jobs like mine, the defect liability period is usually 3 months. That was the small house extension. Now let's see how it compares to the medium-sized project. This job was also built in 2018, and back then it cost £215,000 plus VAT. Today, this would cost about £340,000 plus VAT. About 2/3 of the budget went towards the extension, and 1/3 was spent altering and refurbishing the existing house. The feasibility study took about the same time as the small house extension project, but the size difference begins to tell after this stage. The statutory approvals took much longer. There was a lot of back and forth with the planning officer, and I recall we had to alter the design slightly to ensure cars could park on the driveway in front of the proposed structure. The building standards process also took longer, so 7 months in total to get our statutory approvals. Tendering wasn't too bad. 3 months is normal for jobs like this. There are a lot of questions to answer, and meetings between the client, myself, and the builder to iron out the costs. Construction took 6 months in total. As with the small house extension project, this could probably have been done quicker, but work to the existing house was time-consuming. Another thing to factor in is the size of the building firm. In general, larger firms can do the work in less time, but they usually charge more than smaller contractors. It costs money to manage a bigger team. This job was built by one guy with about half a dozen skilled trades, not all on the site at the same time. If a bigger firm had taken on the job, this could have been done in 4 months, but they would have charged 15 to 20% more for the work. The post-construction process took 5 months to play out. This involved several back and forth queries with the council to get the completion certificate, as well as snagging with the contractor dragging on. Something that always surprises my clients is that even though the building work is finished, the project isn't over. There are usually financial and legal issues that can take months to resolve. Before we look at the large house extension, I should say that if you are considering extending a property in the UK, you can book a consultation with me on the Real Life Architect website. I've put a link in the description. Now for the large project. This house extension totally altered the existing bungalow. Almost nothing of the original building remained except the floor, 3 of the external walls, and part of the roof. This was built in 2015 and cost £275,000 plus VAT at the time. Today this would cost £400,000 to £500,000 plus VAT. Again, the feasibility study process didn't take much longer than for the other projects, and the tendering process was the same length as for the mid-sized extension. The statutory approvals took a bit longer, which is to be expected, and construction took 8 months, mostly because the work to the interior of the existing house was so comprehensive. It had to be replumbed, rewired, and completely rebuilt from scratch. Just look at these photos. Again, the post-construction stage took longer and involved more time dealing with the defects and discussions back and forth with the council. From start to finish, the small house extension took about 14 months, the mid-sized extension took 22 months, and the large project took 27 months. This should give you some idea of how much time you will spend extending a house in the UK. That is assuming the stages follow each other in quick succession. It's fairly normal for projects to pause between stages, often for reasons of finance, or sometimes the builder isn't always available to start work right away. If you found this guide useful, give the video a like. It really helps the channel. My name is Neil, and I am a real-life architect in the UK. I make videos about altering and extending private homes, and sometimes about issues affecting the architecture profession and construction industry. If you like the sound of that, please subscribe to the channel to keep up to date.